What is the most pretentious or inflated job title you have seen? I work at Disney World. Literally everything has pretentious names and is all based off of theater terms because all of Disney is basically a big show. We aren't employees, we are cast members. There are no customers, only guests. Guests areas are referred to as onstage and cast member only areas are backstage. Your position at the company is your role, and you don't have a uniform, you have a costume. They take it so seriously to the point where some roles you actually have to audition for, and I'm talking like just operating a ride, not even a performer. I'm interviewing for opening our Star Wars land later this year and you literally have to make up your own character and backstory. Also, I have a friend whose actual job title is fairy godmother in training. At least the Imagineers are actually thinking up new ideas. So are customers guests like an audience visiting a theater, or are they guests like the famous person hosting SNL for a given week? Disney goes so hard for everything they do, and as a customer, it definitely shows. The level of immersion is miles above any other theme park. Project manager. Excuse me, I'm going to go hide under my desk now. Hey, someone's gotta update the calendar and book meetings the people actually doing the work don't have time for. Yes sir. Of course sir. Please don't fire me. Don't know if you're joking, but it's wildly more complicated than that, or is where I have managed projects. Let's say there's some bottleneck event in a project, like a critical part is backordered. A PM is supposed to A, minimize the odds of that causing a bottleneck in the first place, like order early. B, have already developed a contingency plan for that event. And C, implement a work plan that reassigns people to upstream parts of the project to get them as far along as they can in the absence of that part. And or roll them off onto something else where they will be useful. And yeah, sometimes schedule the right people into a meeting that they didn't know needed, like getting R&D and production folks in the same room. Both groups think they don't think they need each other's input, and both groups are typically dead wrong about that fact. At least that's been my experience. Domestic engineer made at the Holiday Inn, not a real title honestly. The title of software engineer programmer is ridiculous. Most programmers I've known over the last 30 years never engineered anything. They threw code at the wall to see what would stick. If no one died, ship it. I think engineer gets tossed around a lot. When I was in college, I had a part-time job at Party Fair, and my job title was Halloween costume engineer. I grabbed the bag from the back when somebody asked. At least in Canada the term engineer has a legal definition that requires you to be an actual engineer with a degree and a ring and all that. What you need to look out for is engineering, which isn't a protected term. I believe the US has certifications for engineers as well, just that you can call any job an engineer. I don't think I can go around saying I'm a civil engineer, but I can say I'm a diaper engineer when I change my son, since nobody would rationally think I'm a real engineer. Your pick of any monarch royalty figure: His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Earl of Meereenath, Baron Greenwich, Royal Knight of the Most Noble Order of the Garter, Extra Knight of the Most Ancient and Most Noble Order of the Thistle, Member of the Order of Merit, Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, Grand Master and First and Principal Knight Grand Cross of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, Knight of the Order of Australia, Additional Member of the Order of New Zealand, Extra Companion of the Queen's Service Order, Royal Chief of the Order of Lagohu, Extraordinary Companion of the Order of Canada, Extraordinary Commander of the Order of Military Merit, for Canadian Forces Decoration, Lord of Her Majesty's Most Honourable Privy Council, Member of the Queen's Privy Council for Canada, Personal Aide-de-camp to His Majesty King George VI 5, Lord High Admiral of the United Kingdom. At my food service jobs I jokingly called myself a sandwich engineer or salad technician and garbage like that when someone asked what I did. It did irk me though when a company bans words like employees and customers and instead have to use things like associate and guest. Subway calls them sandwich artists. There was nothing artistic about the way they made sandwiches I order there, and I doubt they are paid enough to consider it anything other than a patronizing title. To be fair, they make as much as a lot of artists. I was a sandwich artist and let me tell you, there's definitely an art to getting paid for making sandwiches as poorly and contemptuously as humanly possible in full view of the customer. Subway is the least artistic of the sandwich chains. They have literally industrialized the process of making a sandwich. Their food is awful and overpriced, and they are losing market share for it. When I worked at a rural county jail, we had a person who was jail administrator, police dispatch administrator, head of the civil department, head notary, Z of the budgeting committee, chief administrator for the ambulance service, and the mayor. They got paid for all of those jobs, while not actually doing any of them. They basically just wandered from one work area to another collecting paychecks, while their employees did everything. Everyone just assumed they were super busy at all of the other jobs when in reality they were being paid to not work for like 8 years. It didn't even come up until some employees tried to get paid for duties outside of their job description, and the commissioners were like, "But we already pay somebody for that," and discovered the con being ran upon review. Worst part, said person didn't even get punished. They were just forced to retire with full benefits. I worked a marketing internship where I spent all day looking for prospective clients to spam on LinkedIn, so I saw a lot of these. My two favorite were cybersecurity ninja and chief love officer. Stop sending me LinkedIn messages. I see a lot of these with some of the startups I have dealings with. Quite often they have a normal title and a fun title. Recently came across one place that had all these ridiculous titles. You weren't a customer service representative, you were a satisfaction engineer. The delivery truck driver was frontline logistics coordinator. Cybersecurity architect. That's my favorite one. Though as pretentious as it sounds, part of his job is to develop the cybersecurity suite as well as the practices to protect the software and infrastructure they work with. Influencer. Most don't actually influence anyone to purchase anything, taking away the meaning of their self-proclaimed title. The only real influencers already have other job titles: models, illustrators, marketers, critics, producers, etc. People with actual jobs using their roles to make sales for specific brands and products. I used to be really into reading blogs and watching beauty fashion YouTubers. There has only ever been one time in the 5 years I was actively consuming their content where I bought something one of them showed. I actually had my own blog for a while and did some sponsored posts. I sincerely doubt anyone who read them bought a single thing. When indie filmmakers go all produced by Tim, written by Tim, directed by Tim, story by Tim, casting by Tim, cinematography by Tim, starring Tim, makeup and costume by Tim. Makes me think of Tommy Wiseau. True, but he can actually pull it off. Pretty sure that's just done for comedic purposes. Am film student, this is so true. Yep, I know this from film school also. It's not comedic effect, it's ego. Which film school? I'd rather not say. I wouldn't say it's ego for my point of view, as I've been required to list those roles before. It's not an official one, but once I saw a guy say I handle transactions for a multi-million-dollar worldwide corporation. Acura cashier at McDonald's. Nope, he's just self-aware, and that's a good spin on it, though he's selling himself short on the multi-million part. If each individual MCD's location isn't pulling multi-million, something is wrong. Although an hour department worth its salt sees through that immediately. So, you're good for 80% of jobs out there. It's not a good spin, it's a joke, mate. Once upon a time I was an underwater ceramic technician aka dishwasher at a restaurant. We have a VP of online analytics systems. He's the only person in that department. And yet, he's only the vice president. I've worked in places where vice president is a rank as opposed to being second in command to a president. We had a VP at a hospital I used to work at that was the same. A chief with no Indians is what my director called her. I'm actually laughing IRL at that. I think I found a new favorite metaphor to pull out for special occasions. VP title is probably important for his pay grade. Yup, in corporations pay grades equals titles. I used to work for a small college and there were 6 women who worked alongside the director upstairs. But to keep them from all feeling left out, they were all given managerial titles like logistics and supplies manager. She ordered the stationery. It was literally her only job. Refuse collection manager, the cleaner. Finance manager, receptionist. But she had the petty cash tin in her desk. There were others that were equally as ridiculous, but I forget now. That place went out of business about 8 years ago, when the director woke up one morning, emptied the company accounts, and left the country. Customer service. A long time ago, I worked as a logistics consultant, also almost inflated equals at a company that had a customer service department. Door sign. Actually they misspelled the word customer, and were only 3 dispatchers who were supposed to deal with customer call-offs. I laughed so hard at those clowns each time I passed this door. One of the dispatchers tried giving me a hard time from the first day on, since the moment I have been there helping them to establish a industry-worthy production planning process. That is why I never told them that they have a typo in the door sign. Assistant to the regional manager. And assistant to the assistant to the regional manager. And the assistant of the assistant to the assistant to the regional manager. Recently promoted to customer. And the only one capable of doing that job, regional manager, of course. I came here just to see if someone would say this. Weekend assistant to the deputy regional manager when Jerome is out on vacation and Kathy is sick. 2 guys doing one job? We gotta do something about that. Any sales department where literally everyone on the team is a VP of insert specialty or geographic location because the customer wants to think they are important, talking directly to the VP. Banks are notorious for this. I had a friend whose mother was a VP at a pretty large bank. I was like, wow, that's a pretty big deal. Turns out she was a branch manager. They just call them all VPs. VP stands for branch manager, the VNP being silent. Head of facility management. This is the title of our janitor. At my company, head of used to be an actual pay grade. Yes, you could be head of anything, no matter how mundane or trivial, and you could be paid £60k a year, alongside the head of software engineering, or head of financial strategy. Head of paper logistics. I will restock your printer paper. That's $60k please. Thanks.